You're here for a reason. Maybe you stumbled on this video in the middle of a late-night spiral, searching for answers you can't quite articulate. Maybe you feel the sting of rejection, the weight of being left behind. Maybe you're still grappling with the question, why wasn't I enough? But let me tell you this, you're not here by accident. You're here because something deep inside you refuses to stay broken. You're here because you're on the verge of discovering a truth most people never learn. It's better to stand alone than to walk with those who don't value you. We live in a world where being alone is often mistaken for failure, where standing tall in solitude feels like weakness. But that's the lie society sells to keep you tethered to toxic people, shallow relationships, and false validation. How often have you clung to people who drained you? How many nights did you sacrifice your peace, begging for attention from those who couldn't care less? It ends here. Today we're going to break the chains. I'm not here to sugarcoat the truth or coddle your pain. I'm here to challenge you, to remind you that your solitude is not a punishment. It's power. This isn't a video about revenge or bitterness. This is about your growth. This is about reclaiming your life and your peace. By the end, you'll realize that standing alone isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of everything you were meant to be. So stay with me until the end, because what's coming next is going to light a fire inside you. You'll see why stepping into solitude is not the loss you feared, but the freedom you never knew you needed. 1. The power of standing alone. There's something intimidating about standing alone, isn't there? It feels like stepping into a dark room, unsure of what you'll find. Most people will do anything to avoid it. They'll stay in relationships that chip away at their self-worth, surround themselves with fake friends, or chase approval from people who barely notice them. Why? Because the idea of solitude terrifies them. But let me ask you this, what's worse? Being alone, or feeling alone while surrounded by people who don't see your value? You felt it before. That emptiness that settles in your chest when you realize the people you trusted the most were only there for what you could give. Your loyalty, your attention, your time, all drained like water from a cracked cup. And when you needed them most, they were gone. Why do we cling to people who treat us this way? It's because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is determined by our relationships. The more people we keep around us, the more valuable we feel. But Stoicism teaches us something different. It teaches us that external validation means nothing if we're hollow inside. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Read that again. Your soul, your thoughts, your principles, your integrity, that's where true strength lies. Not in the approval of others. Not in the company of people who wouldn't stand with you when the storm came. I'll bet you've been there. You've lowered your standards, accepted mistreatment, and made excuses for people who didn't deserve a place in your life. All because you didn't want to be alone. But let me tell you a secret that will change everything. The moment you embrace solitude is the moment you reclaim your power. Think about it. Standing alone means you no longer need their approval to feel whole. You don't bend to their opinions, their games, their fake smiles. You don't chase after scraps of attention or beg for love that was never real in the first place. Standing alone means you're free. Have you ever watched a mountain during a storm? The wind howls, the rain crashes down, and the clouds swirl angrily around it. But the mountain doesn't move. It doesn't crumble. It stands tall, unshaken, a silent force of nature. That's what standing alone is. It's becoming the mountain. People fear solitude because they mistake it for loneliness. But the two are not the same. Loneliness is the emptiness you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't understand you. Solitude is the peace you find when you let go of those who never valued you in the first place. And here's the truth that most people refuse to accept. When you stand alone, you scare them. Your strength, your independence, it's intimidating. Why? Because it shines a light on their dependence. People who need constant attention, who jump from one relationship to the next, can't understand the power of someone who thrives alone. They can't comprehend how you're building a fortress within yourself while they're still chasing fleeting distractions. Let me ask you something. How often have you put others first while sacrificing your own happiness? How many times have you silenced your own needs? Convinced yourself that if you just try harder, they'll see your worth? Stop. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to be anyone's second choice, backup plan, or emotional crutch. You are the prize. You are the fire they didn't know how to tend. Standing alone doesn't mean you're isolated. It means you've chosen yourself. It means you've stopped relying on people who were never strong enough to stand beside you. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You see, you've been giving away your power without realizing it. Every time you chased their attention, every time you questioned your worth because of their actions, you handed them control. But when you stand alone, you take it back. You stop reacting to their games. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into their world. And you start becoming the person you were always meant to be, whole, strong, and unshakable. Does that mean it's easy? No. Solitude is uncomfortable at first. It forces you to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It asks hard questions. Who are you when no one's watching? What do you truly want out of life? Are you willing to let go of the people who are holding you back? These are the questions that shape you. This is the fire that refines you. And as you begin to answer them, you'll realize something incredible. You're not afraid of being alone anymore. You welcome it. Because solitude is where you find clarity. It's where you rediscover your passions, your purpose, and your strength. Think about the people you look up to, the ones who seem untouchable, unshakable. What do you think they got there by clinging to the approval of others? No, they stood alone. They walked through the fire of solitude, and they emerged stronger. That's the journey you're on right now. So ask yourself this: do you want to keep chasing the validation of people who don't value you? Or do you want to embrace the power of standing alone, knowing that you're building something real, something unbreakable? Because here's the truth: they don't deserve you. Not your energy, not your time, not your tears. Let them go. Let them watch as you rise without them. And trust me, they'll regret it. They always do. But by then you won't care. You'll be too busy becoming everything they thought you couldn't be. 2. Detachment. Reclaiming your power. Let's talk about what it really means to let go. Detachment. It's a word people throw around, but few understand its depth. Most people think detachment means you stop caring, that you become cold, distant, and indifferent. But that's not it at all. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting their actions dictate your emotions. It means you take back the power you've been handing over piece by piece every time you reacted to their chaos. Have you ever been in a room filled with noise so loud, so consuming, that it's impossible to think? That's what happens when you stay connected to people who don't value you. Their inconsistency, their games, their indifference, it drowns out your inner voice, the one trying to tell you that you deserve better. But the moment you detach, the noise stops. You find silence, clarity, and peace. And in that silence, you hear something you've been missing for far too long: yourself. So let me ask you this: why do you keep reacting to their chaos? Why do you let their words, their distance, their rejection hold so much weight in your life? Every time you replay their actions in your mind, every time you stalk their social media or overanalyze their silence, you're handing them a gift, your energy, and they don't even know what to do with it. You see, they thrive on your dependence. Every time you begged for their attention, every time you asked what went wrong, you fed their ego. It made them feel powerful. But here's the truth: they only had that power because you gave it to them. Detachment is taking it back. Imagine them right now smirking to themselves, thinking they've won, thinking they still have a hold over you. Now picture yourself cutting that invisible string. Picture yourself walking away while they stand there, frozen, realizing they no longer control you. That's detachment. It's not an act of weakness, it's an act of strength. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Take a moment to let that sink in. The pain isn't about their actions. It's about the meaning you've attached to them. When they pulled away, you told yourself it was because you weren't enough. When they rejected you, you believed you were broken. But those are stories, lies you've been telling yourself. Here's a better story. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they weren't capable of handling someone like you, someone real, someone loyal, someone who gave everything and asked for nothing but honesty in return. Their departure says nothing about your worth and everything about their inability to recognize it. Detachment is about rewriting the narrative. It's about realizing that their betrayal was not a reflection of your value, but a reflection of their weakness. And once you see that, everything changes. You stop chasing closure because you realize you don't need it. You stop seeking their approval because you realize they're not qualified to judge you. You stop letting their absence feel like a loss and start seeing it as a blessing. How many people do you know who cling to relationships that drain them? How many people stay because they're afraid to walk away? They tell themselves, it's not that bad. Maybe if I change, they'll treat me differently. But let me tell you this, your loyalty should not be a death sentence to your peace. Detachment means understanding that some people are lessons, not lifelong companions, and their part in your story is over. So let me ask you, what's stopping you from letting go? Is it fear of being alone? Is it the hope that they'll change, that one day they'll see your worth? Or is it because holding on to the pain feels safer than facing the unknown? Whatever it is, let it go. You don't need their validation. You don't need their attention. You don't need them. Think of them like a wave crashing against a rock. Their actions, their rejection, their games, it's all noise. But you're the rock. You remain unshaken. That's what detachment is. It's being calm in the face of their chaos. And here's the irony, when you finally detach, they feel it. They'll sense the shift. The calls you don't answer, the texts you stop sending, the posts you no longer check. They'll start to wonder why you're so quiet. They'll realize they've lost the power they once had. And let me tell you something, they won't know what to do with that. But by then, it won't matter, because you won't care. You'll be too focused on yourself, on your growth, on the life you're building without them. That's the power of detachment. It sets you free. So if you're still holding on to someone who doesn't value you, let this be the moment you let go. Picture yourself taking every ounce of energy you've been wasting on them and redirecting it back into your own life. Build yourself up. Become so strong, so focused, so untouchable that their absence feels like a blessing. If this resonates with you, if you're ready to reclaim your power, do me a favor. Hit that like button and comment number 1 below to declare that you're done playing their game. Let's send a message to ourselves and to the world that we refuse to settle for anything less than what we deserve. And if you're ready to keep rising, to keep growing, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because the journey doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. Let them go. Reclaim your peace. And remember, standing alone is not the end. It's where you begin to rise. 3. Accept reality and embrace growth. Here's the hard truth. You can't rewrite the past. You can't change what they did, what they said, or how they made you feel. But you can control what happens next. You can accept reality, and in doing so, you can set yourself free. The first step is understanding that acceptance does not mean approval. It doesn't mean you're okay with the betrayal, the rejection, or the hurt. It doesn't mean you pretend it didn't happen. It means you look at what happened and say, this is my reality, and I will face it. Why do so many of us resist this step? Because facing the truth hurts. It's easier to replay old conversations, to scroll through their social media, or to hold on to the illusion that if you'd done something differently, they might have stayed. But let me tell you something. Living in denial is like trying to swim while holding onto a boulder. It's dragging you down. And the longer you hold on, the further you sink. So let me ask you, what are you holding on to right now? Are you replaying the what-ifs? Are you clinging to the dream of who you thought they were instead of accepting who they actually showed you to be? Do you find yourself bargaining with reality, hoping that if you wait long enough, they'll come back? Here's the truth. They've already shown you who they are. And once someone shows you their true colors, you owe it to yourself to believe them. Denial keeps you stuck, but acceptance, that's where freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control what they did. You can't force them to see your worth. You can't undo the hurt they caused. But you can decide how you respond to it. Acceptance isn't weakness. It's courage. It's standing in the ruins of what they left behind and deciding that you will rebuild, not because of them, but in spite of them. It's looking at the broken pieces of your dreams and saying, "This is not where my story ends. This is where it begins." Have you ever noticed how a forest comes back stronger after a wildfire? At first it looks like devastation. The trees are burned, the ground is scorched, and everything is stripped bare. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is happening. The fire clears away what no longer serves the forest. It makes room for new growth, growth that wouldn't have been possible if the fire hadn't come. That's what acceptance does for you. It burns away the illusions. It strips away the lies you told yourself, that they were your future, that you couldn't live without them, that their absence is your failure. Acceptance clears the ground so you can plant something new, something real. But here's the thing about growth: it's not comfortable. It's messy. It's painful. It's standing in front of the mirror and facing the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It's asking hard questions. Why did I allow myself to accept less than I deserved? What am I afraid of losing by letting go of them completely? Who am I when I'm not defined by someone else's approval? These are the questions that force you to grow. This is the fire that refines you. And once you begin this process, you'll realize something incredible. The pain they caused isn't here to destroy you. It's here to shape you. Think of every betrayal, every rejection, every sleepless night as a sculptor's chisel. Each blow, each cut, each moment of suffering is shaping you into someone stronger, sharper, and unbreakable. It's chiseling away the parts of you that no longer serve, leaving behind a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. Seneca said, "Throw me to the wolves and I will return leading the pack." That's what this is about. It's about rising from the ashes of what they tried to destroy. It's about proving to yourself that you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you do next. Acceptance is not the end of the pain. It's the beginning of healing. It's waking up each day and choosing to keep moving forward, even when it hurts. It's refusing to let the past steal one more second of your future. It's looking at your scars and understanding that they're not reminders of your weakness, they're proof of your strength. Do you feel it yet? That shift happening inside of you, that voice growing louder, telling you that you can survive this, that you will come back stronger. That's the beginning of something extraordinary. Let me share one more truth with you. The people who hurt you don't get to define your story. They don't get to have the final word. They're a chapter, a painful one, yes, but not the whole book. You are the author of your life, and right now, you're holding the pen. So what happens next? Do you keep living in the shadow of their betrayal, or do you step into the light of your own growth? Do you let their actions hold you back, or do you use them as fuel to move forward? The choice is yours. But let me remind you of this. Acceptance is not surrender. It's power. It's looking at what happened, understanding it for what it is, and deciding that it will not break you. It will build you. Because one day, when you've risen far beyond where you are now, you'll look back at this moment and realize that their betrayal wasn't your ending. It was the fire that set you free. 4. The struggle within. Mastering your emotions. Let's be honest. The hardest battles are not the ones you fight with others. They're the ones you fight within yourself. The struggle within is brutal. It's messy, relentless, and unforgiving. It's the voice that whispers to you late at night. Why did they leave? Was I not enough? Could I have done something differently? Those questions. They're the chains keeping you locked in the past, tethered to someone who doesn't even think about you anymore. How long have you been at war with your own mind? How often do you catch yourself replaying their words, their actions, as if understanding it will change the outcome? It won't. But here's the truth. Your mind isn't your enemy. It's your most powerful tool. The problem isn't the pain itself. It's the story you've attached to it. The story that convinces you that you're broken, unworthy, or forgotten. So let me ask you something. Who's writing the script in your head right now? Is it you or is it them? Because every time you let their actions dictate your emotions, you're handing them the pen. You're letting them control your narrative. And that stops now. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Read that again. The emotions you're feeling, pain, anger, sadness, are real. I'm not telling you to suppress them. I'm telling you to master them. You can't control the storm outside, but you can decide how you respond to it. Think of it like this. Emotions are like fire. Left unchecked, they will consume everything in their path. They'll keep you stuck in bitterness and self-pity, but controlled, that fire becomes fuel to rise, to grow, to become unstoppable. So what's the first step to mastering your emotions? Stop reacting to everything they do. Stop checking their social media. Stop waiting for their text. Stop searching for signs they care. You think you're looking for answers, but you're really feeding your own pain. You're giving them space in your mind. And for what? For someone who walked away without looking back. Picture them right now, living their life, completely unaware of the storm raging in your heart. Does that sting? Good. Let it wake you up. Let it remind you that you have a choice. You can keep letting them live rent-free in your head, or you can evict them. You can reclaim your peace. The Stoics understood something most people miss. Emotions are not enemies, but neither are they your masters. You don't have to be ruled by them. You can feel the pain without letting it control you. You can feel the sadness without drowning in it. That's what true strength is, not ignoring your emotions, but learning to use them. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, looking at the person staring back at you. Do you see someone broken? Someone weak? Or do you see someone who's been through hell and is still standing? Because that's the truth of who you are. You've survived every storm that's come your way. You're still here, and as long as you're breathing, you have the power to rebuild. Let me share something with you. Every time you resist the urge to react, you're building discipline. When you choose not to text them, not to stalk their updates, not to replay the hurt, you're strengthening yourself. It might not feel like much at first. It might feel small, like you're barely holding on. But every small act of discipline adds up. It's like laying bricks for a fortress, your fortress. And one day you'll wake up and realize something incredible. You're no longer fighting for them. You're fighting for you. You're no longer drowning in your emotions. You're using them as fuel. That's sadness. It's pushing you to build a better life. That anger, it's driving you to prove to yourself that you're stronger than they ever imagined. Let me ask you this: what would happen if you redirected every ounce of energy you've been wasting on them back into yourself? What if, instead of replaying the hurt, you invested that time into your goals, your passions, your growth? How unstoppable would you become? The truth is, the struggle within doesn't end overnight. It's not a switch you flip. It's a war you fight every single day. Some days you'll win. Other days you'll lose. And that's okay. Because every time you get back up, every time you refuse to let your emotions pull you back into their shadow, you're becoming stronger. You're proving to yourself that you don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. You don't need them. Do you feel it yet? That fire in your chest. That voice telling you to stop wasting your life on people who don't deserve it. That's the real you, the one who's been buried under their lies for too long. It's time to let that version of yourself rise. It's time to take back your power. So here's what I want you to do. Let go of the story that's been holding you back. Let go of the idea that their actions say anything about your worth. They don't. Their betrayal isn't proof of your failure. It's proof of their inability to recognize your value. If this message hits home for you, if you're ready to master your emotions and take back control, hit that like button and comment number 1 below to remind yourself that you're no longer a prisoner of your own mind. And if you're ready to keep growing, to keep rising, and to keep discovering what you're truly capable of, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because this journey is far from over, and I promise you the best version of yourself is yet to come. Stay focused. Stay disciplined. Master your emotions. The struggle within isn't your enemy, it's your training ground. 5. Redefine your purpose. Let's pause for a moment and ask the question that changes everything. What now? You've accepted reality. You're reclaiming your power, mastering your emotions, and stepping into solitude. But here's the challenge that comes next: defining your purpose. Because this is where most people get stuck. This is where the quiet of being alone becomes overwhelming, and the temptation to look back, to reach out, to settle for less starts to creep in again. Why? Because without purpose, the void feels unbearable. That's why so many people cling to relationships that drain them. That's why they chase attention, approval, and affection from people who don't value them. It fills the void temporarily, but that void isn't something others can fill for you. It's something you have to face, something you have to transform. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Think about that. If you don't know where you're going, any distraction can pull you off course. Every text from them, every memory, every fleeting thought becomes a storm that derails you. But the moment you define your purpose, the moment you decide who you are and what you're working toward, the noise fades. The storms lose their power. So let me ask you, what's your port? What do you want to build? Who do you want to become? This is the moment to stop living for other people and start living for yourself. Stop chasing people who walked away. Stop basing your worth on their actions. They don't get to define you anymore. You do. You've spent so much time giving your energy to others, worrying about what they think, bending to fit into their expectations, fighting to keep their attention. But what if, for the first time in your life, you redirected that energy back into yourself? What would happen if you decided to stop looking for answers in the past and started building a future that excites you? Picture it. Picture the version of yourself who wakes up every morning with a sense of purpose. The version of yourself who doesn't need anyone's validation because you're too busy pursuing your goals. The version of yourself who thrives, not because someone else gave you permission to, but because you chose to. Redefining your purpose starts with asking the right questions. What do I want my life to look like 1 year from now? What goals have I been neglecting while chasing people who don't value me? What does success, happiness, and fulfillment look like to me? Not to them, but to me. This is your chance to dream bigger. This is your blank slate, your reset button. Don't waste it, because here's the truth. Their betrayal was not a loss. It was a release. It freed you from the wrong people so you could make space for the right ones. It cleared away the distractions so you could focus on what matters most, yourself. How many of your dreams have you put on hold for others? How much time have you wasted waiting for someone to see your worth? Let this be the moment you decide that you will no longer live a life of almosts. You will no longer settle for good enough. You will no longer water relationships that refuse to grow. Redefining your purpose means becoming intentional about everything. How you spend your time, who you allow into your life, and what you give your energy to. It means cutting out the dead weight so you can rise higher. Because you can't build a meaningful life while dragging the ghosts of your past behind you. Purpose gives you clarity. It's the antidote to the confusion and the noise. It's what keeps you moving forward when everything else feels uncertain. When you have a purpose, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow because of this?" And here's something most people miss. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be tied to some big achievement or a perfect future. Purpose can be as simple as waking up each day and deciding to be better than you were yesterday. Purpose can be about small, daily steps, choosing yourself, prioritizing your peace, investing in your growth. Because the truth is, the life you're building isn't for them. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about creating something so solid, so fulfilling, that their absence feels like a gift. Picture this. They're out there living their shallow lives, chasing distractions to fill the void they refuse to face. Meanwhile, you're growing, you're thriving, you're building a life so full, so rich, that they couldn't even dream of keeping up. One day, when they look back and realize what they lost, you won't be there to see it. You'll be too far ahead, too focused on your own path to care about their regrets. Because here's the truth about people who don't value you. They will always come back when they see you rising. But by then it won't matter. You'll have outgrown them. And you'll look back and realize that their betrayal wasn't the end of your story. It was the spark that ignited your transformation. So ask yourself right now, what am I building? Because you owe it to yourself to create a life that feels like freedom. You owe it to yourself to become the person you were always meant to be. It starts here. It starts now. Redefine your purpose. Stop looking back. Stop waiting for their approval. Stop wasting your energy on people who don't deserve you. Because the life you're capable of building is so much bigger than the love you lost. And one day when you look back at this moment, you'll realize that this was where everything changed. This was the turning point. 6. Your transformation. Rising beyond their reach. Do you feel it yet? That shift inside you, that fire that's starting to burn brighter than it ever has before. That's the real you emerging. The version of you they never thought you'd become. The version of you they tried to break but couldn't. It's time to talk about transformation. Not the superficial kind where you pretend you're okay, plaster on a fake smile, and tell the world you're fine. No, I'm talking about the kind of transformation that leaves them speechless. The kind that turns their betrayal into the very fire that fuels your rise. Here's the truth. They thought leaving you would destroy you. They thought you'd stay stuck, broken, replaying their actions in your mind while they moved on without a care. They thought you'd wait for them, wait for their apology, their return, their recognition of your worth. But they underestimated you. You see, people like that are small. They rely on others to validate their existence. They can't handle someone who stands tall on their own. And when they left, they thought they were taking something from you. What they didn't realize was that their absence was the greatest gift they could have given you. Because now you're free. Free to rise beyond their reach. Free to stop playing small to fit into their world. Free to focus on yourself, your goals, your growth. And when you finally let go of them, when you stop carrying the weight of their betrayal, you realize something powerful. They never held you back, you did. You held yourself back by believing their lies, by shrinking yourself to keep them comfortable, by staying in places where you weren't valued. But now you're stepping into your power. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Let that sink in. This isn't about proving them wrong. It's not about showing them what they missed out on. It's about proving yourself right. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be, the version of you that doesn't need their validation, their presence, or their approval. Picture it. They're still stuck in the same place they left you, playing the same games, chasing the same meaningless distractions. And you're rising so far beyond their reach that they can't even see you anymore. You're building a life so full, so strong, that their absence feels insignificant. What does that life look like? Maybe it's finally pursuing the goals you put on hold. Maybe it's prioritizing your health, your passions, and your peace. Maybe it's surrounding yourself with people who see your value and lift you higher instead of dragging you down. Whatever it is, it's yours to create. You're no longer reacting to them. You're no longer living in their shadow. You're taking the pain they left behind and using it as fuel to rise. Every step forward, every moment you choose yourself, every goal you achieve, it's a reminder that you're unstoppable. But let's not pretend it's easy. Transformation is a process. Some days will be harder than others. Some nights, the memories might come flooding back. You'll feel the urge to check their updates, to wonder if they miss you, to ask why it all happened. But when that moment comes, remind yourself, you are not who you were when they left. You are stronger now. You are wiser. You are rising. The pain they caused doesn't define you anymore. It's shaping you. It's refining you. It's building you into someone they'll regret losing for the rest of their lives. And one day they'll see it. Oh, they'll see it. They'll see the life you've built without them. They'll see the strength in your eyes, the confidence in your steps, and the peace that radiates from within. They'll remember how they left you broken and bleeding, and they'll wonder how you turned that pain into power. But by then, their regrets won't matter. They'll be nothing more than a speck in your rearview mirror, a lesson, a footnote. a name you no longer care to remember, because you'll be too busy living, thriving, and rising higher than they ever thought possible. Let me ask you this. Are you ready to become untouchable? Are you ready to let go of their memory, to stop chasing closure, and to start building a life so full that their absence feels like a blessing? Because that's where this transformation leads you to freedom, to strength, to peace. You're not the same person you were when they walked away. You're evolving, you're rising. And this version of you, they won't know how to handle it. If this message resonates with you, if you're ready to rise beyond their reach, then hit that like button and comment number 1 below to let the world know that you're done looking back. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. This is a community of people like you, people who are rising, growing, and building themselves into something extraordinary. You don't have to walk this journey alone. This is your transformation. This is your rise. Let them watch. Let them regret. Let them fade into nothingness. Because the only thing that matters now is you and the life you're about to build. 7. Their regret, your peace. There's something poetic about regret. Not yours, theirs. The ones who underestimated you, who walked away without a second thought, convinced you'd always be there waiting. They didn't see your value when they had you. They didn't appreciate the love, loyalty, and effort you poured into them. And now, as you rise, as you rebuild, as you become someone they no longer recognize, the weight of their mistake begins to sink in. But here's the beauty of it. Their regret is not your responsibility. Let that sit with you for a moment. For too long, you've been carrying their actions like they were your burden to bear. You've replayed their words, their betrayal, their absence, searching for answers, trying to figure out what you could have done differently to keep them. But the truth is, their choices have nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. Their inability to see your worth is a reflection of their blindness, not your value. Yet we crave closure, don't we? We want them to realize what they lost, to see our worth, to feel the sting of regret as deeply as we felt the pain of their rejection. But here's the secret no one tells you. You don't need their regret to heal. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself. Ask yourself this. Why does their regret matter to you? Is it because you want validation? Because you want to feel seen, valued, and important? If so, I'll remind you of this. The value of a diamond isn't diminished because someone mistook it for a pebble. Their inability to recognize your worth does not mean you are any less valuable. Let's go a step further. Imagine them now, years from today, looking back at the life they built, the empty, shallow relationships, the choices they made that led them nowhere. And then they remember you. They remember the kindness you gave so freely, the loyalty you never asked for in return, the strength you carried even when they gave you nothing. It hits them like a weight in their chest. They let you go. And in that moment, they'll regret it. They'll replay the times they ignored your effort, dismissed your worth, and took your presence for granted. But by then, it won't matter. Because by then you'll have outgrown them. You'll have risen so far beyond their reach that their regret will feel like an echo, faint, insignificant, and meaningless. The Stoics teach us to focus only on what we can control. You cannot control their regret, their guilt, or their realization of what they lost. And you don't need to. Because peace doesn't come from their acknowledgement, it comes from your ability to let go. Peace is walking away from what no longer serves you without bitterness. It's understanding that their choices are not a reflection of your worth. It's choosing to focus on what's ahead of you, rather than what's behind you. So let me ask you, why are you still carrying them with you? Why are you holding on to the hope that they'll regret what they did, that they'll come back, that they'll finally see you for who you are? Don't you see that you're giving them power over you? Power they don't deserve. Every time you think about their regret, you're tethering yourself to the past. You're keeping yourself stuck in a moment that no longer exists. But here's the truth. You don't need their regret to move forward. You don't need them to see what they lost to realize what you've gained. Because what you're gaining is priceless. Your freedom, your peace, your strength. You're no longer defined by their actions. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of hoping, waiting, and hurting. Instead, you're stepping into a version of yourself that they could never have imagined. Think of it this way. Their regret is like a shadow. It will follow them wherever they go. It will haunt them when they see someone like you and realize they'll never have you again. It will eat at them when they hear your name and remember the person they let slip away. But you'll be free. Free from the need for their validation. Free from the weight of their choices. Free to live a life so full, so rich, and so vibrant that their absence becomes irrelevant. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not waste the remaining part of your life on other people's thoughts. Let that be your mantra. Stop worrying about whether they regret losing you. Stop waiting for the apology that may never come. Stop giving their choices any more space in your mind. Because here's the truth. The best thing you can do, the ultimate act of moving on, is to live so well, to build yourself up so strongly that their regret becomes their burden, not yours. You don't owe them forgiveness, closure, or a second chance. You owe yourself peace. Imagine it now. You, standing on the other side of this pain. You, thriving in a life that feels like freedom. You, looking back at this moment and realizing that their betrayal wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your transformation. And when they come back, and they will when they realize what they lost and try to spin their lies, their excuses, their empty promises, you won't need to say a word. You'll look at them and smile because you'll know the truth. They were a lesson, nothing more. A stepping stone on your journey to becoming the person you were always meant to be. Their regret doesn't define you. Your peace does. Let them regret. Let them watch. Let them feel the weight of their choices because you're done carrying it for them. This is your time, your life, your story. And it's time to write a chapter so beautiful, so powerful, that their memory fades into the background like a distant noise you no longer hear. You're free now, and that's all that matters. 8. Final affirmation. Better alone than undervalued. You've made it this far. You've faced the truth, embraced the pain, and allowed yourself to rise. Let me remind you of the truth that brought us here. It is always better to stand alone than to walk with those who don't value you. Look at how far you've come already. You're no longer begging for answers, chasing after people who barely noticed you, or tying your worth to someone else's approval. You've stopped waiting for them to return. You've stopped wishing they'd see your value. Instead, you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. Think about this. Every time you chose to walk away, every time you chose silence instead of reacting, every time you chose your peace over their chaos, you took back your power. You've proven something to yourself, something that no one can ever take from you. You don't need them. You never did. Here's the thing about people who don't value you. They only realize your worth when you're no longer there. They come crawling back when they see you rising, when they see you thriving without them. But by then, it's too late. You see, they expected you to break. They expected you to stay stuck in the wreckage they left behind. But you didn't. Instead, you used their betrayal as the fire to forge a better version of yourself, stronger, sharper, and unshakable. Now picture this, you standing tall, your head held high, looking back at everything you've overcome. The people who doubted you, betrayed you, and underestimated you. They're watching from the sidelines now, wondering how you managed to rise so far above them. But their regret is no longer your concern, because you are no longer defined by their actions. You are defined by the way you chose to rebuild yourself. You are defined by your strength, your resilience, and your refusal to settle for anything less than you deserve. So let me ask you one final question. Who are you now? Are you still the person who needed their approval to feel worthy? Or are you the person who realizes that your worth has always been within you? Are you the person who chased after love that was never real? Or are you the person who now chooses yourself, your peace, your growth, your future? The answer is clear. You're not who you were when they left. You're stronger now. You're free now. And this new version of you, they can't touch it. They can't reach it. They can't break it. It's time to affirm it. I am better without them. I am enough as I am. I choose to stand alone rather than settle for less than I deserve. Say it out loud. Say it like you mean it. Let it sink into your mind, your body, and your soul. Because this isn't just the end of their chapter, it's the beginning of yours. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You hold the power now. The power to rise. The power to move forward. The power to create a life so fulfilling, so unshakable, that their absence becomes irrelevant. They were never the source of your strength, you are. So take this moment, stand tall, wipe the tears, let the past fade behind you, and move forward with a fire in your chest and a calm in your heart. Because you are unstoppable now. If this message hit home for you, if you're ready to step into this next chapter of your life, hit that like button and comment number 1 below to affirm your strength. Declare to yourself and the world that you are no longer settling for less than you deserve. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, this is where we rise together, where we transform pain into power, where we remind ourselves that we don't need anyone to complete us, we are already whole. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. So keep rising, keep thriving, and keep proving to yourself just how powerful you truly are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Until next time, take care of your mind, your soul, and your peace. Because you, my friend, are better alone than walking with those who don't value you. Here we are, the end of this message, but the beginning of something far greater for you. You faced the pain, embraced the struggle, and accepted the truth. You are better alone than walking with those who don't value you. Life will test you. It will break you, bend you, and push you to your limits. But it is through these trials that you discover who you really are. Your worth was never tied to anyone else. It was always yours. Their inability to see it doesn't make you any less valuable. Their departure didn't diminish you, it freed you. And now the path forward is clear. It's time to stand tall, to let go of their memory and take back control of your life. You have the power to rise above their betrayal, their indifference, and their games. You have the strength to build a life so full of purpose, peace, and joy that their absence becomes nothing more than a distant shadow in your story. So as you walk away from this video, remember this: you are not alone in this journey. There are countless others who have felt what you're feeling, who have walked this path, who are rebuilding just like you. And every step you take, no matter how small, is a victory. You've chosen yourself. That choice is your power. That choice is your freedom. Say it one last time. I am better without them. Let it ring through your mind like a declaration of war against everything that has ever held you back. Because you are not just better, you are unstoppable. If this message gave you strength, I want you to take action. Hit that like button and comment number 1 below to affirm your growth, to declare that you're ready to move forward and leave the past where it belongs. And if you're ready to keep growing, keep rising, and keep building a life that no one can take from you, subscribe to this channel. Because this is where we rise together, where we remind each other that our strength comes from within. Thank you for being here, for showing up for yourself, and for choosing your growth. This is just the beginning. Your story isn't over, it's only getting started. So take a deep breath, stand tall, and walk forward into the future that's waiting for you. Because you, my friend, are strong enough to stand alone.